Hello and welcome to InAffinity. Here is a whole bunch of tips and techniques for using the brush and colours and so on, and I'm sure you'll know a number of them, but there's perhaps others that you don't know, so it's a whole raft of them. So first of all, if you want to pick up the brush and you're down here and you normally hit a B, and that will jump you down to the brush down here, but do beware that if you hit B again, it's going to cycle through those. And then eventually also it's going to skip down to this one down here, and then B gets you back up again to that, so watch out for that, or just click on there if you're more mousy. If you're going to paint somewhere on here, then if you might do, say, pick up a colour and you paint here, and if it looks a bit funny what the heck's going on, check things along here because they might be able to be affecting it. So note here I've got the blend mode is exclusion here, so I change that back to normal, and then my painting is going to be okay. If, by the way, if you're painting here and it's a bit, the brush is going a bit blobby, as some brushes might do, watch out for this down here. If you click on more here and go to the spacing, so if it's like this, I paint here, see it's going to go blob, 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 in which case you want to bring the spacing down. If you use brushes a lot, it's a good idea to get the idea of these. You don't need to know them all, but figure out the ones which are going to help you the most. So what else? Yes, you can use blend modes, by the way, deliberately. So I could say turn this up to darken, and though I've got the green selected here, it's going to combine with the red here, so I paint on here. You can create, effects here straight away, so you can use it deliberately for that, but normally stick it on normal there. Generally also, if you want to paint on a picture, it's a good idea often to click on a new pixel layer and paint on that first, so because then you can change the opacity of it, you can change the blend mode of it, and you can go to the erase brush and you can erase it, so you've not lost anything at all. That's kind of a handy thing to do often when painting. So what else do we hear? Yeah, using this up here, there's that little RGB there that make sure you do in red, green and blue, but sometimes it's useful to switch, and there are other ones under here. So HSL lets you choose by hue, saturation and luminance, which is kind of useful because if I want to draw on here with this and then change the color down to here, I'm going to get the same kind of matching color in terms of hue, and everything else changes separately. So that can be quite handy, particularly for matching things up. Then also watch out for, I usually leave that on RGB, otherwise I get confused. It's a good idea generally to leave things on the default. In the hamburger up here, you've got wheel and sliders, and I use those two most, and it's very seldom the others there. The wheel is really good for picking a color. Blue, you can sort of slide it around, but then down here you can go on just to use it as a grayscale, so I can go black to white down here, wherever that is. And also if I get to white, I can then slide up towards the more intense color and pull in towards the middle. If I go back to sliders as well, and I click on that again, down here I got 8-bit, which I normally leave it on. Even if it's a 16-bit color, it'll sort of scale it to look like that there, because you don't want the big numbers. But also percentage is useful, and then you got a percentage here because sometimes it's useful. You want to think about 33% or 50% and so on, just a little bit easier to use. So let's leave that back where it was before. If I'm drawing something, I want to click there. If I hold the Shift key, then it'll draw straight lines, which can be useful if you're drawing something, say, on the side of this car here. Going to shift click up to that there. Get rid of those. If I set colors here, then hitting D will set that back to black and white straight away, and hitting X will switch those two colors like that. For the when I've got a paintbrush going here, when I've got the opacity up here, if I type 1 it goes 10%, 2 20% and so on. But if I want something in between, I'd say type 3, 4, I get 34% like that. If I want to change the opacity and hardness together, if I hold down Control and Alt, I get a double circle here, and I can then click and slide upwards to change the hardness, and left right to change the width overall. And width and size are the same thing on this. But also, though it's also not always noticed on the PC, the Alt-GR on the right side of the keyboard, just hold that down and you get the same thing. So but it's a really quick way of doing it. Tap on that or use Alt and Control on the other side, and you can see the extent of how far it's actually going to paint, which sometimes is rather useful because it can be putting down some ink in that direction there. If you want to pick up a colour somewhere, so there's a colour under the brush here, if I hold down the Alt key and click on this, let's just put the opacity up so I can see there. So Alt click under here. That's a very, very quick way of picking up a colour there. Although if you've got a big brush, it can be a bit tricky to figure out what exact colour, where the centre of that circle is. Up here, the picker here, if I click on here, I can drag down here. I can go on the picture, but I can also go onto anywhere else in here to pick up a colour. I can even go off this window, off this screen, onto another screen and pick it up from another application altogether, just to find that. So if you're swapping between things, dead easy to do with that. But when you do that, it stays only here. If you want to put it into colour, you've got to click that again, then it will appear there, and then you can use it with the brush. If you want to adjust these colours here, if you've got these set up here, so I've got there kind of a brown colour. If I hold down the Shift key and slide this up and down, see they all sort of move up and down together. So I get in shades of effectively the same colour. That thing with the picker here, I can almost replicate it here by holding down the Alt key, and if I press and hold and drag it, then it changes, it switches into this. And this is kind of handy as well, because if I want to pick up a colour here, say I want to pick up that, you know, maybe that little bit of something, just like that little bit of green there, I move to that there, then I let go of the buttons, then Alt click, and I pick that up again without moving that, so I know where that centre is, so I can really set that for picking up the colour of that brush. Okay, that's it. That's a whole ton of stuff, and I hope some of that was useful. Watch it again slowly, pick up the ones that you want. Anyway, and thank you very much for watching.